All right, well, let's move on to the next topic, and we're going to be talking about Ange Postecoglou and his comments in the press conference after the game. Obviously, it was clear, I think we can all agree, that subs needed to be made a lot earlier in the game than which they were made. I think our first sub came on, 79th minute, even later than I thought, to be honest. And when you see we were struggling after the first goal, the second goal, the third goal, and still another 15 minutes after the third goal, subs were made. I thought it was a bit disgraceful from Ange not to make the subs earlier when he said it in the press conference, he could see the team was struggling. And these were the comments regarding that situation. He says, yeah, I could have, but all the things are totally irrelevant to me. Substitutions and all these kind of things. If you're not competitive, it doesn't make what you do. You're not going to get rewards. You don't deserve to win. We didn't deserve on our second half performance, irrespective of subs or anything else, to get something out of the game. But I think if you do get something out of the game, you're falsely rewarded, and I don't want to get falsely rewarded. So, John, what do you make out of those comments, and why did he not make those subs earlier?
I don't know. That's kind of what I was saying earlier. Like he frustrates me with like the kind of lack of in-game management a bit, and his kind of rigidity throughout the game. And I don't really understand the substitutions half the time. I don't really think they make sense. The only time I've really seen him ever show real attacking intent with the substitutions was against Man City, the one game that I just didn't want us to show any intent last season. Do you know what I mean? It felt like he really wanted to prove a point and try and absolutely go all guns blazing to get the goal there against City. But in normal games, I just don't see it. I just don't understand what's going in his mind when during a game. Like when the going gets tough, like Ange, you can make substitutions to kind of shore it up a little bit and, you know, like hold on to the lead a little bit more. It doesn't mean you have to completely stop the free-flowing football, but just, you know, tighten things up a little bit. But I don't know. It feels like he's not proactive. He's reactive, and then he's not even really reactive. He sort of waits too long to react to it often, and then he'll make a substitution. Like last season, I think he was bringing on Harry Skip when we needed a goal. Ollie Skip when we needed a goal. And what, you know, like, so I don't know. I mean, this is just, I'd like to ask you the same question, to be honest with you. What
do you make out of these comments that he made after the game? Because he's trying to justify him not making the changes till very late on in the game, once the game was gone pretty much.
Sorry, could you quote me again what he said? Like exactly? Sorry.
He says, yeah, I could have made the subs, but all these things are totally irrelevant to me. Substitutions and all those kind of things. If you're not competitive, it doesn't matter what you do. You're not going to get rewards. You don't deserve to win. We didn't deserve on our second half performance, irrespective of subs or anything else, to get something out of the game. But I think if you do get something out of the game, you're falsely rewarded, and I don't want to get falsely rewarded.
No, I can see what you're saying there, but sometimes
explain
it's not
it to us, John.
Yeah, well, it's not just about I know what you're saying in the terms of it's not just about the substitutions that can miraculously help things. Totally, I get that, because if the whole team is struggling, then sometimes subs won't make any impact whatsoever. But I would still say you can try and see what happens. You know, it can just affect things around you, and it can tighten things up. You can change the formation around a little bit. You can tweak things in game. It's not like managers haven't done that and haven't, you know, won games from that position before. It's almost, I don't know, I just find it slightly strange that he's saying that, because he's basically saying that, oh, I don't really need to do anything from the sidelines. I don't really have to make any substitutions. I don't really have to do any in-game management. The team's not playing well, so that's just how it is, so we might as well just leave it then. That's kind of the feeling.
Is he implying on the side with those comments that he's kind of saying the players on the pitch got us into this mess and it's on them to get us out of it? Is that what he's saying?
Yeah, there is a little bit of a whiff of that. I mean, okay, let's just throw it around this way. You're the manager, you're on the sidelines, and you can see that the team isn't showing the same intensity, and they're losing those second balls. They're not winning the duels, let's say, and you can feel there's momentum shift. What would you do, Sim, in that moment as a manager on the sideline?
I'd change it. I'd get involved in the game, and I'd get players who can get onto the pitch and win those duels and try and regain control of the game. And that's what frustrated me with hearing those comments, because he kind of implies he saw the problem but decided not to change it because of this sense of the players, not doing their jobs. And I get what he's trying to say. Like, just it's not like if we lose this game, it's not my fault for not making subs because the players lack that intensity in that fight, which they have been drilled, week in week, day in day out in training to perform on the pitch. And if they're not doing that, then it's not my fault just because I didn't make subs that we've lost that game. And if I made some subs and we got something out of the game, doesn't mean we deserve to get anything out of that game. And I don't want to be falsely rewarded for that. But I also think your job as a football manager is to, when you're on the sidelines, you're obviously at the end of the day, their jobs is to win games and get results, right? That's the job. That at the end, yes, there's projects and processes and all that stuff, but all that is a way of building a team that they believe is sustainably going to get results. And part of your job is in-game management, and part of your job is seeing things on the pitch and getting involved in the game to tweak things and change things to try and regain control, and not just sitting back and saying, well, they're not doing what I told them to do, and so it's their fault that we're losing this game. Like, that might be true, but it's on you to get involved in the game and start changing that, and that's on you to switch things up and to not just sit there idly and do nothing essentially and watch things go bad and not try and regain control of the game. And that did really frustrate me, and it frustrated me in the game, and it frustrated me even more hearing those comments implying that he did see the problem but decided not to change it.
What's going on? I'm agreeing with you. What's going on here?
Doesn't make a good Hotspur episode.
Okay, so tell me, when has there been a game where Ange has shown some really good in-game management and changed things up, and you could see the dynamic change on the pitch? Can you think of any examples?
Can I think of any examples where the dynamic has changed in game?
I don't think there has been one this season, that's for sure.
Well, I think this season in general, we've been in control of most games. I don't think there's been a massive need to change things up in most games this season.
I guess the only game that I can think of, is the Brighton away game last season, where we really should have got back in that game. We created more than enough chances to do that. We were 4-0 down, got it back to 4-2, and we created a bucket load of chances, and that was due to the changes that Ange made in the game.
Ben, I still think the Brentford game at home a few weeks ago, where he stopped Porro and Destiny inverted, where Maddison had one of his best games. There were subtle changes in certain games that he has made that I believe have been slightly overlooked. But getting back to his press conference, that bit about falsely rewarded has infuriated me beyond belief. Like, we got people that stand by the manager, defend the manager. I'm one of them. But it's comments like this where you can see where he antagonizes and winds people up, because how you can say, like Simon said, this is a football manager. It's a result-based business. And you saying, I don't want to be falsely rewarded, does that mean every time that we're playing bad or in a losing position and playing badly, you're going to go, do you know what? This team deserved to win. They've played better. It blows my mind that a man can come out and say these things. It's like, what are you saying? Because you don't need to hear this after a defeat. We can all see. Listen, I'm just going to harp on one substitution that should have been, whether it should have been a substitution or a change at the very start. I came on to one of your fan shows. I think it was the Fenerbahce game where we spoke, Ben and Sim, about the quote that I say that players are overplayed and undervalued, and we were talking about health-wise if they're being not rotated enough. Destiny didn't go to Hungary because we wanted to rest him and make sure he was okay for Brighton. I think we could clearly see that he wasn't. Whether you could see that in the first half or later on in the second half, and you've got Spence sitting there. You've got a ready-made replacement. Would it have made a difference? We don't know. Would Spurs fans have said, roll the dice because this can't continue? I think we all would have said, yeah, get Spence on. We can see he's struggling. It wasn't made. Again, Destiny has been overplayed when he may not be fully fit. And then to hear him say that, and I'm completely with you, Sim, where he said, where he thinks these players got themselves into the mess, they get themselves out of it. Well, no, you've got 5 substitutes. The entire point of substitutions is to make changes to enhance the game, should changes been made at 2-1? Maybe. I think you and Ben said yesterday, Sim, I think it was you that said it, Sim. The most infuriating point was at 2-2. He didn't make those changes. At 2-2, if you had brought Sarr and Madison on, Sarr and Basuma on, you'd be like, okay, he's there to steady the ship. That makes sense. Let's get control of the game. Then you bring a Mikey Moore on. But you're 3-2 down, and then you go, do you know what? Let's steady the ship. Let's close shop. Well, no, we don't need to close shop. We need to be on the attack now. His comments are mind-boggling. His comments after the games have been mind-boggling, and especially after Brighton.
Brian, after the game, he also said it's the worst defeat he's had in his tenure. It's the first time this season, since he's taken charge, that he has seen a lack of fight from this team and a lack of intensity in the second half and lack of doing the basics in the game. Basically very much calling out the players, I guess, in that second half. Yeah. So is he right to do that? We've blamed other managers for doing that. We have criticised other managers who have done that in the past. So is Ange right to do that on this occasion?
I think what we've criticised before is when certain managers have called out players individually, live, and literally homed in on one person and said, right, this guy, what blah, 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 blah. Whereas what Ange has done it collectively. And I think Ange was absolutely spot on for calling them out. In fact, he should have called them out harsher, in my opinion, because they deserved it collectively. You said as well, I think it is the worst performance from going 2-0 up. Listen, you mentioned Fulham away last season, but they were on top the whole game. We threw this game away. We just literally, we had victory in our hands. It was all in our control, and we blew it. Other games, we've just been overrun from start to finish. And it's like, right, the best team won. We haven't adapted. This was unacceptable. And like you guys said, once again, this has happened just before international duty. And it's our players more concerned now before international duty about picking up a knock or anything and not being able to play for their country, as opposed to representing the badge that we all love and admire. I kind of get it if it's towards a World Cup, a Euros, a Copa America, an Asia Games, an African Cup of Nations. These are pre-season or international friendlies, and these players seem to take more commitment and passion into that than they do into games just before an international break for Spurs. And I think Ange was absolutely right for calling them out. And it was the worst performance, definitely.
Do you think?
What did you, John? Do you agree with that kind of method of Ange to calling out the players after the game?
Fans should call out the players. Sorry.
No, Ange. I'm saying Ange calling out. Ange being hypercritical of the players, calling them out, saying they're not doing the fundamentals, they're not doing the basics. It's the worst defeat he's had in his tenure. Do you think he's right in doing that, or do you think that should be more kept in house? What's your opinion?
Yeah, I think that should be kept more in-house, to be honest with you. And I think he's responsible for the players. So I don't think he can just completely pass it off to them like it's not his role at all. And I don't think it's the worst result. Losing to Arsenal at home 2 seasons in a row is worse, and just treating it like another game and not really getting upset about that's worse for me. Because at least the first half was good. So second half fell apart. But I don't think that, for me, losing 2 North London derbies at home in a row is what he should be. That's what annoys me a little bit about Ange, to be honest with you. He doesn't quite get that, does he? He doesn't quite understand how much that game means to us. And he should have been absolutely livid after those defeats at home to Arsenal. But it seems to me it's just, for him, just another game, Whereas, I don't know.
What do you think, Sim? What do you think, Sim? Was he right to make those comments?
Do I think he was right to make those comments? I could think he was clearly very emotional after the game. That was obvious. I think had he had his, was it a mess sending him? Because he did at the end say, obviously I have to take full responsibility for it, but he was saying, this is it was the worst defeat he's had in his tenure, and it's the worst time. It's the only time we haven't done the fundamentals. I mean, I don't know if I agree with that though, because I remember some defeats last season, like Fulham away and some of the Liverpool away, where we were just rubbish from start to finish, and we just like didn't get at all going in the game. At least in this one we got control, but I understand what Brian's saying is that I think it is true. It's probably the first time we really had proper control of a game, and we only have ourselves to blame why we lost it, and we just completely gave up control, and we completely allowed the opposition to bully us. And I can understand his frustration. I can understand him being so annoyed at that situation that he couldn't keep that to himself, essentially. So I think on this occasion he probably is right. I think if you're doing it, if you're continually bashing the players week in week out, it becomes a clear issue. And I think that is something that has gotten other managers in trouble at this club and is criticised. I think on this occasion there had to be a bit of a wake up call for the players, because I think the way they had control and just gave it up, and it's almost like, as we say, they thought the game was won. I think that was a big reason why we lost that game. So I think the players did need a bit of a wake-up call, and I think Ange has given that to him. But hopefully that's the last time we see that. And if we see it again, then I think there has to be more on Ange than the players.
I don't mind him calling out the players as long as he takes responsibility himself, and I think he did do that in the press conference. But however, I don't like the comments that he did make on the subs, because it was clear as day that we needed subs a lot earlier in that game. And when you're kind of comparing it to other managers who have done the same, I think it was Mourinho who was calling out individuals. He wasn't calling out like as a collective, and he never took responsibility himself. Conte as well, he called out the club. He called out the players. He didn't really take responsibility himself. But I think that in that time when Conte called out everyone after the Southampton game, I think everyone needed to hear that at that time as well. And it's actually sparked a big change within the club, Conte doing that, selling all the deadwood, bringing in a whole heap of new players, decreasing the age of the squad and everything like that. So I had no problem really with what Conte did at that time as well. I think the Mourinho one, when he was like calling out individuals, I can't remember exactly which individuals he called out off the top of my head, but I remember he did do that. So I think every situation is probably a bit different in the moment in time which they're given. But I think the way Ange did it over the weekend, I think it was completely right, to be honest. I don't think anyone can really argue against it. Agreed. I mean, you can even add Tim Sherwood to that list when he did it after the Chelsea game. I loved that interview from Tim Sherwood after that game.
Yeah, it was good, wasn't it? It was good.
Go on, Ryan.
Go on, Tim, you go, bro.
Now, I'm guessing there's a difference between agreeing with what Ange said and then agreeing that he should say it publicly to the media, in a way. You know what I mean? Like, should he be kind of saying one thing to the media, then another thing to the players behind closed doors, like give him a good bollocking, and then to the media kind of take responsibility himself, rather than throwing the players under the bus? I guess that's the argument people would say. But obviously what he said, I don't think people disagree with, but is it the right thing to say it publicly, I guess, is the argument.
I think collectively, in press conferences, whatever, collectively is absolutely fine. When he's behind closed doors in private, then the inquiries and the calling out individuals will happen. That's what you keep in-house. But if you can't come out and collectively say there was no leadership, there was no this, there was no that, as a team, everyone else can see it. And if he doesn't call it out, then people will say, well, he's clueless, he's not calling it out, he's not seeing it. So exactly. I think when he's doing it live or press conferences, go for them collectively. You're not calling out individuals. You're just saying what we all say on YouTube or in the pubs or whatever. And the inquiries, individuals, you do keep in-house. But collectively, you have to be able to discipline them verbally on record. You can't. He does take a lot of the responsibility for no subs and other things, but he can't just say, right, well, yeah, there is fault on that pitch, and collectively they deserve to be called out.
I do think it becomes a bigger issue if it's like individuals, and I think any time Ange is asked about individuals, he comes, he always backs them up, and he always kind of stand up for them, doesn't he? Timo Werner, Brennan Johnson, when they're not going through good times. So when it does come to individuals, Ange is always there to stand up for them.
Correct.